How are you, gents? It's SBG here on this Sunday afternoon. I'm making a non-MGTOW video today. I'd like to hear your thoughts and opinions about global warming, climate change and CO2. If you are here in Australia, you would know about the Extinction Rebellion, protests, and for some reason they seem to have their command and control centre here in Brisbane. It's like a ground zero for these protesters, and they've been protesting for about the last 4 months or so, since about June, and they have caused a lot of disruption and chaos in Brisbane, in the Brisbane CBD. Around July and August they caused traffic jams about 15 kilometres long on the Southeast Freeway. In one case an ambulance was prevented from getting to its destination, and several people complained that they had missed important medical appointments with specialists. So sometimes these protesters don't think about the consequences of their actions, although they do have a right to protest. But I don't see how causing a 15-kilometre long traffic jam is preventing pollution in any way. I think that coal is in fact a dirty industry and pollution is a problem, but I don't think that it is CO2 that is the problem. Recently I have been watching a channel here on YouTube, Adapt 2030 with David Devine, and David has been copping quite a lot of shit for some of the content he has been putting out, but I think he has quite a bit of good information. And recently in the Northern Hemisphere in July and August there have been record snowfalls in many areas, and we heard about the heat wave in France in June for about 3 days, but the mainstream media never talks about the minimum temperatures and how there were frosts in many areas. Recently here in Australia there was heavy snowfall near the Blue Mountains just outside of Sydney, around Katoomba and Lithgow, which did receive quite a bit of publicity. And even in April there was record cold temperatures in parts of Western Australia. So we're really not hearing both sides of the story, and it really annoys me that with all this talk about climate change, we never hear in the mainstream media anything about the sun and about how the sun defines our climate. The sun is a star and it has a very big effect on the Earth's climate, a lot more than humans ever will have as far as I'm concerned. I don't know your opinion about that. Do you think that human-induced climate change is a thing? Is CO2 having an effect on our planet? I know that about every 300 to 400 years or so we have a grand solar minimum. There was the Dalton minimum in the 1300s, I think, and we had the Maunder minimum. And the Earth was very cold from about 1650 to 1710. And when there are many sunspots, the Earth is very warm. When there are minimal sunspots, when there is minimal sunspot activity, the Earth becomes very cold. And there have been many ice ages, and it makes life on this planet very uncomfortable. And civilizations fall when there is a mini ice age, and our climate is cyclical. We like to think that nature is linear, but it is not. It operates in cycles, and just like every now and then a comet or an asteroid hits the Earth periodically, that is also a cycle. So there are 400-year climate cycles, there are 2,000-year climate cycles, and 3,600-year climate cycles. So I think to say that humans have more of an effect on our climate with CO2 than the sun does, it's just quite ridiculous. But coal will eventually be phased out because many banks, like the 4 big banks in Australia, they are refusing to provide finance to mining companies, and insurance companies won't insure coal mines because coal mining is a very dirty business. And I actually used to live near a coal-fired power station, and you can see the soot and grit that falls onto the vegetation, onto the leaves on trees. And I live near a river and I could see the coal dust on the mangrove leaves. So I'm not saying coal is good, but we can't just phase out coal. We need it to keep the lights on and to keep our civilization running. So there are some Greens who just want to close down the coal industry. It's just totally ridiculous. And we have these Extinction Rebellion protesters. They're very radical in my opinion. And last Monday, a 22-year-old woman, she was suspended on a bamboo tripod above the Victoria Bridge, and that caused a lot of chaos. There have been protesters who are gluing themselves to the road, and now the police are carrying acetone around with them so they can remove these protesters. There are going to be climate protests in Sydney this week and in Brisbane as well with the Extinction Rebellion. They're moving on to Sydney and Melbourne now, I think, and Sydney has double the population of Brisbane, so I'm sure there's going to be a lot of traffic chaos and transport chaos in the Sydney region. Anyway, gents, let me know how you feel about this subject, about this topic. What is your opinion about our climate? What do you think is affecting our climate? And our climate has been changing for thousands and millions of years, but what do you feel, what do you think are the main factors that are causing climate change, that contribute to climate change? I was going to make this video in a car because it's very windy. I'm down here near Margate Beach, just north of Brisbane. This is a really beautiful area looking out toward Moreton Island, and the port of Brisbane. You can see quite a few ships out there on the horizon. It's a public holiday, so it's very busy, and the wind makes it a bit difficult to make this video, but I've managed to make one, so that's great. Anyhow, I hope to read your comments. Thanks for listening as always, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.